hard act to follow. Hard act to follow.
Absolutely. I was about to start, before I started speaking, to say it's hard to follow such an articulate and passionate advocate both for sports facilities and for his community. I'm asked to speak this evening because I'm deeply concerned about the disposal of this piece of land. It's situated on the borders of Hale and Burnt Oak wards and at the heart of a community that quite frankly needs its community support and community facilities enhanced and not sold off. This property, this proposal to sell part of the site for housing, reportedly at the luxury end of the market, and the long-term leasing of the rest of the site to a specialised free school, is being taken forward at the same meeting as the outline business case for sports and leisure strategy, which shows that Barnet comes a dismal 23rd out of 33 London boroughs for sporting activity among adults and young adults, as we've seen tonight, and below the national average amongst children and young people. And yet here we are, instead of harnessing potential funding from Sport England and a palpable community will and energy to put sports provision exactly where it should be, in areas of need, instead we are seeing the selling off and the squandering of that opportunity. There is a covenant for sports provision on this site, intended to protect access to the site for local people. Do you intend to ride roughshod through that covenant to the detriment of local people? It will not be the first time, sadly, and you have faced legal action in other cases. What legal advice have you taken that gives you comfort that you can do this? That you can break a legal covenant? What are the risks and the potential costs of legal action? I see from the website for the school, hoping to occupy the site, that they intend to open in September 2014, just 9 months away. So I'm not sure what assurances you've given them. I am concerned that there have been a number of community groups interested in providing sports activity on this site over the past several years. Could I ask whether any of the community proposals for the site, or there have been community proposals for the site, and whether they have been fully and properly considered, and why they haven't been supported?
Yep.
There's a real concern locally. You claim within the paper that sports facilities in the school will be available for the community out of hours. But there have been so many cases where this just has been promised and where it has just not proved to be the case. It either hasn't been a practical reality, or the charges for access to that provision have been too high to make it a realistic alternative to a dedicated community sports facility. What guarantees can you give on this? How will community access be set in stone? What real assurances can you give the community about this, that long-term affordable access will be available for proper sporting facilities on this site? It seems to me that an opportunity to support this community is being missed. But even if you were minded to sell part of the site for housing, why were you not ensuring that there will be a mix of affordable housing affordable to local people at a time when there is a chronic shortage, and when the supposedly affordable housing that's been built in the wider area, such as Beaufort Park, is being eroded by rocketing service charges and escalating rents? So I ask the Cabinet members, have you asked yourselves the following questions before you vote to dispose of this site? What legal advice have you received that you can act against the long-standing covenant on the site? And what are the financial, reputational and practical risks in doing so? Have you properly considered all options for community provision? What serious consideration have you given to affordable housing on the site? And how are you going to guarantee affordable and open access to the community sports activities and facilities that this community clearly wants and needs on this site? Thank you.
Before we respond to Councillor Moore's questions, any questions from Councillor Moore? Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. What do you say to the Chinese community in Barnet who are looking for a venue for their school? Obviously, I think in desperate need of a venue. Does the Labour Party ever want any alternatives as to where they can go in the Borough of Barnet?
I deliberately and specifically set my comments about community sports facility about this area. And hang on, and not about this specific school. I think they've got a very interesting proposal, but whether this is the right site for that school within this community is a different issue, and I think they have a very interesting offer when you look at the website, but it is balancing the needs of two communities.
Chairman, if I may, I think these two areas are linked. I think that you can't say one thing without having an alternative for the other. I think it's irresponsible to come here tonight to not have some different ideas for this important part of our community. And I ask the question again, I think, what do you say to the Chinese community who you seem to be opposing their developments?
I'm not opposed to their development, I'm talking about protecting a site for a local community, and the two things are different.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Moore, you mentioned that there have been lots of community groups over time that have tried to make a viable proposal for this site. Just my background knowledge, how many of those groups have you actively helped and supported with their bids?
Those groups who've been around in the area have received a lot of community support and support from Labour Party members and councillors and former MP during that period. And the reason I commented on it is because you asked a question about how recently Darrell had been interested in this site. But the point is, there have been groups and projects interested in this site for quite a number of years. It's not just in response to this immediate proposal.
Yes. Councillor Rouse.
Thank you. I read, I think it was in the Barnet Times, and I apologise if it wasn't, that the local Labour councillor was supporting a power lift type facility on this site. Do you support that with all the traffic noise late into the evenings that comes with such a development?
I made no comment about that particular offer. The issue here is about community sports facilities that are affordable and to support the local community in this area.
Question. Councillor Moore, you make a strong point about community facilities. So if I said to you tonight then that in response to one of your questions regarding how would you guarantee community use, so the free school would have a lease from the council, and within that lease would specify that the all-weather pitch would be available outside of school hours to the community. Is that not something that you would welcome?
If you can guarantee that and at a price the community can afford, yes. But I'm looking at officers at the other end of the table, and some will know that there was Sport England money went into a school in the East Finchley area, probably the best part of a decade ago. I welcomed that project. It was potentially a sustainable way of using that money in a ward at that point that lacked youth sports facilities and was quite clearly an area of deprivation in terms of youth sports facilities. And I made no judgment about the school or their business plan, but the reality is that that sporting facility is not open access to a lot of local community groups because it actually is not affordable to them. And that's the point when it comes to this. Unless you're going to set a register of charges within that lease, then actually it is quite difficult when dealing with a private entity that will be looking at managing its own business plan to maintain its own sustainability. And so I think there's a real challenge there and a tension with the two halves of that community.
Yeah, I think we can say with some comfort, given what's happened at Saracens, we have guaranteed and actually delivered very well community use of that, and we have a track record. So 10 years ago, I think it's a good example, and certainly let's do a lesson from that. I think let's use examples of very near history where actually we've done it very well. So we can always look back to any event that, yes, that was a bad example. Let's look at good examples of very recent events. So Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Chairman. You mentioned Councillor Moore, the issue of affordable housing. You started off talking about, okay, well, you want a community facility. And then you mentioned that, we're not sure about the affordable housing. Are you saying then that, in your own opinion, if you were to build affordable housing somewhere, that it doesn't matter what land you're building on, you can build on it if it's affordable housing? And is that the Labour Party stance, that you can build anywhere that's affordable?
No, not at all. I was merely making reference to the fact that, like another potential proposal that you had in another part of the borough, a key part of that was actually, certainly one of the bits, was at the luxury end of the market. And that means you'll have a higher gain for that. You'll get more money for that site. And actually there is a challenge right the way across the borough around housing that is affordable to local people, because there are plenty of commercial house building projects across the borough on sites owned by other local people, privately owned sites, where actually that sort of housing is going. But we actually, as a council, hold the ring for a whole range of communities within Barnet. And actually I was merely questioning your issue, the issue of how much benefit there would be to the local community from selling on this site.
Any other questions?
Councillor, have you actually read the report before us tonight? Because in it, it specifically talks about the benefits in terms of sports facilities to the over 55, something that's come up this evening. And do you support that sort of development for over 55s in Barnet Oak?
I would support sporting provision right the way across the age range, but you've heard from a very strong advocate for the community today who feels that for a range of age groups there is a need for community sports facilities. I wouldn't pick and choose across different age ranges, and I think there will be some good developments going on for 55 plus as well as a lot of younger people, but that's not the issue here.
Again, Chairman, I disagree. This is providing facilities for a wide range of people, and the report quite clearly states this. It talks about how it will be beneficial to diverse communities throughout Barnet who are at this time the facilities are under pressure and need to get back into use. And I don't think doing nothing is an option here, and I think Councillor Moore needs to come up with alternatives if she is to sit here and say that we should do this.
And my rejoinder to you is you need to listen to your local communities, because frankly you'll come on something.
My question to Councillor Moore is, and I'm afraid I don't have the report in front of me at the moment, how long has this site been derelict?
It's not been routinely used for sports provision because actually it's a low site and it hasn't been particularly well looked after.
For how long? 10 years?
2002.
So, I mean, isn't it really time to get it back into use?
It is, and you've had a number of community groups over the last 5 or 6 years lobbying you to do just that.
And they'd have the money.
We've been waiting for a proper mining venue.
But have you helped them get a grant?
It's at the council level.
No.
The core maintenance of it can certainly be partially laid at the council's door.
I'm sure, but it's time to bring this back into use.
And the point of issue here is that the site which could be brought back into complete community sporting facilities use is actually being fragmented for a range of other uses, and there actually there's no guarantee of sort of sporting facilities this community needs on this site.
We have to make sure that we do put the guarantees in what does happen.
I don't think in doing that you need to be mindful of the table of the previous decision.
Very thorough debate on this site, and Councillor David, you want to add further?